in the sense of let me zoom in the sense I zoom in too much and I missed the, so again 2.56 is right here, which is in the sense of this item. This is what we have, is we're looking for the two item, which is again 2.5, and we go up to the 6, which is 0.9948. Okay, so again, this is what we will doing in terms of this thing here. They tell you that you can use this table to find your answer, which is the table give you all of the z-score in terms of, again, from a negative item to a positive item. So if they ask you find the area under standard normal curve to the left of negative 0.53. So if you click on this thing here, negative 0.53, this is what you have is on this side, you have a negative number. On this side, we have positive number, which is negative 0.53. We go to negative 0.5, and we go all the way to 3, which is everybody see that this item right here. This item that I have, which is again, negative 0.5, I go to 3, which is this item is negative 0.053, which is 0.2981. Okay, so this is what we have, or this is what you guys can do, in the sense that looking at this table, we can extract out what the answer is by looking at the table, and that's the only, you know, that's one way to do it. One thing to do it, you know, back when I took this class, that's the only way that I can do it. Pretty much that is the Bible for my class. For me is chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 8. That's the chart, that's the table that we will be using, okay? But again, I just want to show you that yes, there is the table. On your homework, there is that table, and you can use that table to find the area to the left of the z-score, okay? But we won't spend a lot of time on the table, because now we are allowed to, or you are allowed to use your calculator. So now this is what we would be focusing in, which is we will using our calculator to find this area underneath the curve. So to find this, or to use this item, here, this is what we need to do, is we need to hit second VARS, which is second for, just like your chapter 5, right? So the only two items I will tell you guys, the only two items that we will be using is the norm CDF and the inverse norm. Unlike the binomial distribution, we use the binomial PDF and the binomial CDF. For the normal distribution, we will never use in normal PDF, because like I mentioned, at one particular point, we cannot find the area. So again, we will never use PDF for the norm, okay? For normal, we have to use normal CDF and inverse norm. We will do inverse norm later. So normal CDF, there are 4 items that you need to conduct this normal CDF. What are the 4 items? You need the lower limit, you need the upper limit, you need the mean, and you need the standard deviation. So reminder, if they say the standard normal curve, then the mean is equal to 0 and the standard deviation is equal to 1. That's what they say, the standard normal curve, okay? So the upper limit and the lower limit and upper limit, I will mention in the next slide, okay? So again, this thing here, for this example 3, I just want to mention that there is a table, and someone do the normal distribution table for you. You can just go in there and extract out a percentage to the left. But if they ask you for the percentage to the right, the table will give you a little bit difficulty, okay? So that's why we will spend the rest of our day focus on how to do this with our calculator. So let's take a look at this example here. Let's take a look at this example. So like I mentioned, this is the 4 things we need: the lower limit, the upper limit, the mean, and the standard deviation. So one thing is, because it's a continuous data, because it's a continuous data, it keep on going into a positive infinity or negative infinity. Basically, your graph doesn't touch your graph here. Your graph here, this thing here is not really even, it's never touched the horizontal line. It's look like a touch, but it's just basically say it's go very close to that thing, but it will never touch that thing. Okay, but again, it's pretty much, as you can see, they tell you that because it's continuously, it's keep on going to the left and keep going to the right, that's why it's negative infinity and positive infinity. Your calculator does not have the infinity sign. So if your and in order to use that, this is what I tell you guys is if it's a negative number, if it's a negative endpoint, we will use a negative 1,000,000. We have to use some small number. So negative 1,000,000 is small enough, you know, after 10 it won't do that much. So we're just going to use negative 1,000,000 to make sure if there's a negative endpoint on the left. If there's a positive endpoint on the right, we will use positive 1,000,000 as our upper limit. Okay, so those are your two limits here. So let's take a look at this thing here, which is again, let's take a look at this thing here. One thing I want to point out is, and I will keep on asking you guys to do this, is sketch your graph. Okay, ask yourself, what is the question asking me? And you sketch it. It doesn't have to be precise. It doesn't have to be exact. You just want to know what is the area that I'm looking for, so that you know what is your endpoint. Okay, so if we read example 4 say find the area under the standard normal curve. So under the standard normal curve, reminder, under the standard normal curve, the mean is 0 and the standard deviation is 1, right? Find the curve for the given, find the area under the standard normal curve for the given information. So A, they say lie between the z-score of negative 0.75 and the z-score of 1.70. So everybody see that this is what I do is for me, this is what I do is if they ask me for in between, I will sketch this and I say, okay, my left endpoint will be negative 0.75, my right endpoint will be 1.7. And I'm looking for, they tell me to find the area in between, which is now I know that this is my lower limit, this is my upper limit, which is the two number they give me. The smaller number is my lower limit and the upper number will be my upper limit. Okay, so looking at this thing here, this is what you guys need to do is, let me clear all this. So everybody see my calculator on the screen? So I would try to do the 83 first, and whoever have an 84, I will show you the 84, and then I will go back to 83. So to do this thing here, we know that this is what we're looking for. We're looking for the area between these two values. And to do this thing here, you have to hit second VARS, which is second for, go to option number 2, which is normal CDF. Once you hit normal CDF, reminder that this is the 4 items we need. We need the lower limit, which is in this case, the lower limit is negative. Make sure you use the negative sign down here and not a minus sign. Negative 0.75, comma, 1.70, comma, because it's a standard normal, the mean is equal to 0, comma, the standard deviation equal to 1, close your parenthesis. So again, this is what we need to, if you have 83, this is what you guys need to do to type it in manually, which is the lower limit is negative 0.75, and the z-score on the upper limit will be 1.7, and the mean will be 0, and the standard deviation is 1. And if you do this thing here, your answer will be 0.7288. Okay, so again, that's what we have in the sense of this item here, which is again, should do that. So that's what we have in the sense of give me 1 second. In the sense of this information here. So if you have an 84, again, this is what I asked you guys to type in, which is normal CDF, negative 0.75, 1.70, and 0.1. If you have a TI-84, and again, let me just show you, if you have an 84 is a little bit more advanced than the 83 in the sense that you have that window prompt for you. So if you have an 84, if you hit second var and normal CDF, you will have this window prompt. Okay, don't worry about this -1 E99. This thing here is just basically tell you that there's 99 0 after this one, which is very humongous. Okay, but anyway, looking at this thing here, if you have the 84, you have this window prompt. The lower limit, which is the lower limit in this case, will be -0.75. And again, if you put -0.75, it's the same. The upper limit will be 1.70. The mu is 0 and the standard deviation is 1. And again, if you have an 84, they have this window prompt. You just type in the correct item, which is the lower limit, the upper limit, the mu, which is the mean, and the standard deviation. And once you have this thing here, you just press enter and enter again. So again, they will give you the same answer as I give you earlier, or they will give you the same answer as 83. It's just that 83, you have to manually type it in. Okay, so let's take a look at, let me go back to 83. Let's take a look at this item here. So let's take a look at B, right? Let's take a look at B. And this is what they ask you is find the area under the standard normal curve to the right of the z-score of 2.04. So to the right, like I mentioned to you guys, if you have this problem, this is what you want to do is you want to sketch it and ask yourself, what side of this underneath this curve am I looking for? Make a habit of sketch it out, because in chapter 6, in chapter 7, and in chapter 8, your goal will using this bell-shaped curve, and you need to pretty much sketch them to know which side of this point that we want to get. Okay, so looking at this thing here, because they asked us to find the area to the right, which is everybody see that this is my blue shaded area. So to find this area to the right, everybody see that I'm looking for this area, which is again, what is my lower limit? My lower limit will be this z-score right here. My lower limit will be this z-score right here, which is this is the z-score that I want. And we have to tell the calculator, calculate from this number all the way to the positive infinity. But your calculator will not have a positive infinity, so that's why this is what I suggest for you guys to do, is when you type it in, this is all you do is you hit second var, go to normal CDF, and again, my lower limit in this case is 2.04, comma, my upper limit, because like I mentioned, this thing will keep on going and going and going and going and doesn't have a stop, which is we need to use some bigger number. For me, I say just use 1 million. And again, it doesn't matter if you use 1 million or 10 million, you just need some humongous number, okay? As you see right here, I'm typing in 10 million, right? So again, doesn't matter, you just need something bigger than 10. You know, sometimes 100 is fine, but again, we want to make sure we put 1 million. Your mean is 0 and your standard deviation is 1 because we deal with a standard normal curve. So looking at this thing here, everybody see that because I'm looking for the item on my right, I tell my calculator, calculate from this value, which is 2.4, all the way to humongous number, which is 10 million, and give me the percentage, give me that probability or that area, which is in this case, the answer would be 0.0207, right? So looking at this thing here, this is what you need to do is, again, you just type in normal CDF, 2.04, that's your lower limit. Your upper limit is some humongous number. This one here, I use 10 million, 0.1. And again, your answer should be 0.02067, which is you round up to 0.0207. And let's do one more, and then I will take your question if you have a question. The other question they will ask you is, find the area to the left of the z-score of 1.01. So if you sketch this thing here, everybody agree that to the left, which is whatever this value is, that's my z value. right? To the left, meaning this is the area that I need to calculate to the left. I need to calculate, and again, to the left, you can use your table. Your table, remember, your table only give you the area to the left. If you were to use your table for this thing here, you need to find the item of this thing here, and you take 1 minus it. But again, your calculator do it for you, so you don't have to do anything until 1 minus. So looking at this thing here, we tell our calculator, calculate the item to the left. So if you want to tell your calculator to calculate the item to the left, this is what you need to tell them, which is, again, what is your lower limit? Well, as you can see, this thing here is some negative humongous number, some small negatively, right? So we just use negative 10,000 or a million. I just type in a bunch of zeros just to make sure, right? Again, negative 10 million, comma, what is my upper limit? My upper limit will be 1,01. My mu will be 0, and my standard deviation will be 1 because I'm dealing with a standard normal, which is once you have that, you just press enter. And again, this will be your answer, which is 0.8438. Okay, we round it up to 38, which is, again, this is what you type in, and that is what you should have. And again, make sure, and this is why, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I ask you guys to sketch your graph. If you look at A, if you sketch your graph and you see the 2 line, that is your 2 endpoint. The left endpoint is your left, it's your lower limit. The right endpoint is your upper limit. If you sketch your graph and you see that you shade it to the right, then again, the smaller, whatever the value is, that is your lower limit, and your upper limit is something big, something in million. So we just use either 1 million or 10 million, something humongous, to tell your calculator, I want you to go in there and calculate this region from this number all the way up to 10 million. Give me the answer, right? And if you have this item, if you sketch your graph and you shade it to the left, you say, okay, go calculate some small number, which is negative 1 million, all the way to this upper limit, which is 1.1. So again, those are your basic, this is the only 3 questions that they will ask you, okay? They will ask you find the area between some 2 number, find the area on the left of some number, find the area on the right of some number. Okay, so that's why, you know, to sketch it, if you can sketch the graph, you can see, hopefully you can identify which endpoint am I using, okay? So someone probably say, is Mr. Tran, is the mu always 0 and 1? Not quite. The reason why we're using 0 and 1 for this problem and the previous problem, because they tell you that the standard deviation is a standard normal curve. Right. Before we get to the next problem, question on how to use your calculator, question on how to sketch your graph, and question on how the answer should look like. All right. And ladies and gentlemen, just a small reminder that if they ask you to find the area, your answer will never be bigger than 1. Remember, the maximum area underneath the curve is equal to 1. So if you have something more than 1, you did something wrong, okay? So let's take a look at this problem here, example 5. Let's say that they say that a normal population, a normal population, again, the only reason why they say a normal population is just to tell you that this population, whatever this data that you collect, is a bell-shaped curve. It's a symmetric bell-shaped curve like this. That's it, right? If they don't tell you that, then we don't know what kind of data we collect. It can be skewed to the left or it can be skewed to the right. We don't know. So they have to mention that your data is normal. So normal basically tell you that it's a bell-shaped symmetrical, okay? So again, the normal population have the mean of 9 and the standard deviation of 6. Now they ask you what proportion. Remember, I told you the area, proportion, or probability is the same thing, right? What proportion of the population is less than 20? So just imagine less than is smaller than or is to the left of 20, right? If you were to sketch this, everybody see that it's the same graph like this. Let's say that my 20 is here. And again, I'm looking for the area or a proportion that less than 20, which is, again, less than 20 will be some item over here. Okay, this is 20.
Question.
Yes.
For when it says standard normal, that's the only time the mean will equal 0 and the standard deviation will equal 1. But if it just says normal population like that, it can be something different.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If they say normal population, they will usually give you the mean and give you the standard deviation. If they say standard normal curve, then they don't give you the mean and they don't give you the standard deviation because it's to be known that the mean is 0 and the standard deviation is 1 for a standard normal curve. Okay. So, and one thing you will hear me say a lot in chapter 6, the two most important things you need from here on out, the two most important things you need is you need the mean and you need the standard deviation. Without the mean and without the standard deviation, you cannot calculate anything. Okay, so those are the two most important things. So again, if they tell you standard normal curve, the mean is 0, standard deviation is 1. If they tell you anything else, then they will give you the mean and they will give you the standard deviation. Now our goal is, or your goal is, what side or what am I looking for? Am I looking for the area to the left or the area to the right? So less than 20, we're looking for the area to the left. So now, once you can identify that, once you identify that we're looking for the area to the left, this is all we need to do is, because it's area to the left, my lower endpoint will be some small number, right? So this is what I need to type in, which is I need to go to normal CDF. My lower limit will be negative 10 million or something, just put in a bunch of 0, right? And again, my upper limit will be 20. My upper limit will be 20. And now, what is my mean? My mean is my mu, which is 9, and my standard deviation is 6. So everybody see that again, they give us all the information we need. The lower limit is something small, which is again negative a million if it's on the left hand side, positive on the upper limit if it's on the right hand side. So again, we're using a negative a million, and my upper limit will be 20. And again, my mean is equal to 9, and my standard deviation equal to 6. And then I just press enter, and my calculator will calculate everything for me. Which is, again, this is why, ladies and gentlemen, I did not focus in on how to find a z-score. If this problem, if you don't have a calculator, to use in the table that I showed you earlier, you have to convert to the z-score, and then you go to the z-score and you find the percentage. Because the z-score doesn't have 20, you have to take this 20 minus the mean, divide by standard deviation, and then that's your z-score. But anyway, we did that in chapter 3, so we don't want to focus on that. Question on here, why my endpoint is some negative small number, my upper limit is 20, and 9 and 6 here. The other question they will ask you, as I mentioned, area, proportion of the population, and the probability is all meaning the same thing. So what is the probability that a random chosen value will be between 7 and 13? So again, looking at this thing between 7 and 13, which is, we know that we're looking for the area between that two number. And if we look at the area between that two number, do you agree that we don't need to use negative a million or positive a million, because there's a fixed interval that we need to looking for? So given this thing here, what will be my lower limit? Well, my lower limit will be 7. My upper limit will be 13. My mean will be 9, and my standard deviation will be 6. Everybody see in terms of this thing here, everybody see that because they asked me between these two numbers, that are the lower limit and the upper limit. And again, all I need to do is type in my normal CDF and then press enter, which is 30.3781. Okay. Again, the next example, I will kind of go step by step in terms of what you need to do. But looking at this thing here, question on how to locate the feature on your calculator, because again, that's the most important thing here, is how to locate that feature on your calculator and tell your calculator to calculate it, right? like I mentioned yesterday, the tool is just as good as you are, right? The tool cannot be better than you, right? You tell them what to do. So the tool is just as good as you are. So again, you have to know what to tell them. So question here in terms of how to find this notation